Would you call me crazy if I told you that the FBI knew the Hunter Biden story was going to get leaked, then ran a fake scenario prepping Twitter on, hey, in the event there's ever a story that leaks about Burisma and Hunter Biden, we know this is fake news, right? Let's go through some scenarios of how this might play out, and why don't we do it with the heads of NBC and the New York Times and Facebook and Twitter all combined, so that way we can be prepared in case that ever happens, right? Yeah, you might think I'm crazy for what I just said, but if you watch this video, you're gonna see that that's potentially exactly what happened. Folks, the deep state might be real. Ron Paul is now suggesting that the FBI should be abolished following the damning Twitter files released today. And I've been covering the Twitter files, but this part 7, wow, does not matter what side of the aisle you are on. This one will have you raising your eyebrows going, really? Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Let me catch you up to speed. So I ran for governor in 2020, and I believe my tweets were censored when I ran against the Democratic governor in California. And what did we find out recently from the Twitter files to catch you up? Well, politicians could request tweets be removed, and the more contacts you had at Twitter, the more tweets you could get removed. And guess what? Since we saw a lot more money flow between Democrats and big tech, no surprise, Democrats were the ones that had a lot more contacts to introduce things like visibility filters, which were a secret way to institute shadow bans on accounts that basically allowed Twitter to say, oh no, we don't shadow ban, we just visibility filter, but they didn't say the second part out loud, right? Then we learned that after the first release of the Twitter files, a former FBI agent who worked in 2016 to investigate Donald Trump ended up working at Twitter and ended up moderating the release of the Twitter files. After discovering this, Mr. Musk, Elon Musk, found the individual's answers unconvincing, and a result, that FBI agent Jim Baker was exited from Twitter. Then we learned, though, that it wasn't just one FBI agent who was at Twitter. There were a lot of them. In fact, we also learned that the FBI had regular communication channels and backdoor protocols to provide election misinformation reports, even to the point of moderating jokes to Twitter. And I'm talking jokes as simple and rudimentary as, like, if you're an American, vote today. If you're a member of the opposite party, vote tomorrow. And people with accounts that had like 5 likes on those tweets were getting moderated by the FBI. Well, today we get Twitter files number 7. And this one, whoo boy, this one was damning. So now let's hit the Twitter files part 7. And this gets damning, and I'll show you some crazy screenshots as well. I do just want to remind you that the only sponsor for this channel is myself. I have programs on helping you build your education in stocks, making money through real estate investing, property management, having a side hustle, making more money at your job, you name it. There are incredible programs linked down below that give you lifetime access to the programs. You get access to my course member live streams, and I want you to consider this. While I'm a licensed financial advisor, I'm a licensed real estate broker, I run an ETF, I've got a lot of experience in lending and construction, I strongly believe that even though I can't give you personalized financial advice, I can give you a lot of insights and perspectives that might make you go, aha, here's a way I can make some more money. And I strongly believe the courses will pay for themselves for you. Check those out, link down below. So in December 2019, Delaware computer store owner, whom we'll nickname JP, contacts the FBI about the Hunter Biden laptop and suggests that there's criminal activity on the Hunter Biden laptop. The FBI then gets a court order to take the laptop, but before they take the laptop, the store owner makes a copy of the hard drive's content because the shop owner suggested it contained illegal material and he wasn't sure the FBI was going to do anything about it. Well, sure enough, come August of 2020, about 9 months later, and just a couple months before a massive election, about 2.5 months before the 2020 election, the shop owner never heard back from the FBI. So the story goes, the shop owner gave Rudy Giuliani, who was working for the Trump campaign, the hard drive, who then gave that hard drive copy to the New York Post. And because Rudy Giuliani was under surveillance by the FBI, which he wasn't aware of, the FBI knew that Giuliani now had a copy of that hard drive, gave it to the New York Post, and the New York Post was about to drop a damning story on Hunter Biden with the information in this hard drive. And in prior Twitter files, we've heard that the FBI was starting to prime Twitter, that hack and leak operations were coming, and to be prepared to delete such potential misinformation. And it's important here to note that even though many early mainstream media outlets first censored the story, even companies like the New York Times, when the New York Post story finally broke about the Hunter Biden laptop, even companies like the New York Times finally in March of 2022, nearly 18 months later, finally admitted to the existence of the Hunter Biden laptop story by linking to their own story that they hid from their main newspaper's webpage, suggesting that they had always been covering it along. But the internet didn't forget, and people who watched the New York Times like hawks had a field day that March of 2022, 18 months later, when the New York Times finally came full circle and recognized the authenticity of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Anyway, back to Twitter. On October 13th, which was the day before the New York Post story drops about the Hunter Biden laptop and potential collusion with Burisma and Hunter Biden receiving payments, we don't so much need to go into the details of that story. You got to hear the FBI stuff, okay? Just weeks before the election, FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sent 10 documents to Twitter's head of site integrity, Yoel Roth. This person used to be Elon Musk's right-hand person at Twitter until he suddenly was also exited, possibly because of Yoel's involvement in the Twitter files, but we'll see. Elvis Chan's documents were sent through this platform called Teleporter, which was a direct and back-channel app for sharing files between the FBI and Twitter. They had a direct line of communication for sending documents. The next morning, the New York Post story drops, and Twitter, as well as other platforms, almost immediately begin to censor the story. That's at least some of the early information we got. But it turns out there was a lot more information. Now, this is actually where things get really interesting, because leading up to the actual New York Post story in June of 2020, you actually have the FBI talking to individuals at Twitter trying to find any kind of weird foreign activity or involvement. And you see that here in the emails, where Twitter is actually suggesting, we're not actually seeing clear-cut evidence of foreign involvement on our end. But the FBI kept asking, going as far as suggesting that people must be using VPNs, virtual private networks, to disguise themselves. And so then, in exchange, apparently, for more connections over at Twitter, Elvis Chan, an FBI agent, ended up offering Twitter employees secret temporary clearance to information that the FBI was working on. So in essence, Twitter could become an extension of the FBI's ability to moderate or investigate public information. Documents were sent through Teleporter and had to do with Russian hacking organizations like Exhibit A, FITF, or Topic B, APT28, or Topic C, Sandworm. These were all Russian hacking organizations because there was now a top secret clearance authorization that was at least temporary before the election between Twitter and the FBI. They had a close working relationship and were able to share these sorts of detailed investigative pieces of information. Now, what's also worth noting is it wasn't just folks like Jim Baker who worked at the FBI and then all of a sudden went on over to work at Twitter. There were so many FBI agents leading to this close-knit coordination between the two that take a look at this email. I'll hide myself here for a moment. Hey, Jim, so excited you are here. I am no longer the newest BOO alum. BOO being Bureau, so FBI, BOO alum. This was so common, they had a nickname, BOO alum. Here is the Boo to Twitter translation chart I mentioned, adding Dawn so she can assess. Welcome, super pumped to work with you again. This was so common to see people go from the FBI to Twitter that they had to put a chart together, putting in simple terms what platform you should look at your 401k in. If you used to work at the FBI, you might be used to TSP. Well, now that's Vanguard. Used to your payroll going through NFC, now that's ADP. And all of these other things were templated because it was so common for people to move from the FBI to Twitter. So what you're about to hear should be no surprise, and it is probably the scariest thing that I have seen yet. This is absolutely wild. Okay, here it is. In September of 2020, right before the New York Post story breaks in October, so less than a month before that, a tabletop exercise was initiated between Twitter, the New York Times, Facebook, NBC News, and, of course, the FBI. And this was all in regards to an exercise of a hypothetical leak of Burisma-related information. I kid you not. Just a month before Rudy Giuliani and the New York Post break the Hunter Biden Burisma leak story, which the FBI knew that Rudy Giuliani had access to and knew he was going to leak, the FBI decides to come up with a hypothetical scenario that, hey, look, if there happens to be this hypothetical scenario ever where misinformation is leaked about Burisma, this is what it might look like. And listen to how coordinated this plays out. Day 1, Monday, October 5. Anonymous website begin posting purported information from Burisma tied to Hunter Biden. Splashed across the top of the site. Joe Biden betraying America before money. He'll do it again. Initially, the documents appear mostly Ukrainian and appear to be minutes of various board meetings. Basically things from Hunter Biden's laptop, right? And fringe media and the Drudge Report start picking this up and sharing it on social media. And then, of course, on day 3, real Donald Trump is probably going to tweet out, is Joe Biden the biggest criminal of all? Check out the new Hunter Biden laptop story. And now you start getting rumors that, look at the quotes coming from the emails, like, I really need you to do this for me, 10% to the big guy, right? And then what's going to happen is in Ukraine, Burisma is going to announce that there's no evidence of any hacks. And then after Burisma announces that there's no hacks, guess who else is going to announce that? Oh, the Biden campaign staff on day 7 on a Sunday show are going to announce that this is just a hack and leak and it's a dirty trick by Vladimir Putin and it's all just fake news, that this story is fake. And you know what? NPR is going to join and say that this information looks fake. And not only is NPR going to join and say this is fake, but even Facebook tells their insiders that, hey, be careful, okay? This information looks like it could be fake. And remember, this was the New York Times. What in actuality happened. In actuality, the New York Times came out and said, look, there's no evidence that any of the information contained Russian disinformation, even though the FBI ran this scenario suggesting that this was all going to be a hack and leak operation by Vladimir Putin. The New York Times, which was involved in this, themselves said, no, there was no sign of Russian disinformation. Yet the FBI seems to want to be the organization here that's being a little sus, okay? And I don't think everybody at the FBI is sus, but this is not a good story. I mean, look at this. John Ratcliffe, the director of the National Intelligence Agency, also told Fox Business that the laptop is not part of some Russian disinformation campaign, but Mr. Ratcliffe, who has been criticized for embracing the president's political agenda in a traditionally apolitical job, did not make clear whether the intelligence agencies or the FBI authenticated the laptop's contents or whether he was simply saying he had not gathered evidence as to whether Russia is involved. In other words, hey, the FBI says this is all fake news, but we're not saying whether we've authenticated it or not. In other words, the FBI is not making a claim whether it's fake or not. We're just saying it's fake. That's the allegation here, at least, through the implication of this John Ratcliffe statement. But this hypothetical scenario goes on to where even on day 8, the expectation is Trump is going to call on the FBI and Biden to be investigated, and Jim Comey will tweet, FBI agents tells me they are being silenced about the truth. Trump is illegally coordinating with Putin. He must resign. When the reality is the FBI is almost writing the script for all of this in a hypothetical exercise. Now, we're assuming, and I want to be very clear about this on this channel, we are assuming that the information that we are getting from the Twitter files are at least somewhat accurate, right? Now, is it possible that all of this is fake and we're being duped to make it seem like the FBI is a liar? Yeah, totally possible, right? We're getting this from the Twitter files. But this certainly makes your antenna go up, especially when the next day you get Yal Roth saying, wait a minute, this Hunter Biden laptop story isn't really clearly violative of our hacked materials policy after the story drops on the 14th. And despite this, you get none other than Jim Baker, who used to work at the FBI, going, I don't know, man, it kind of looks like these are complete fabrications. And then sure enough, all of Twitter ends up deciding, yeah, let's just go ahead and censor the whole story because we think this is a hack and leak operation. And quite frankly, we've been primed enough by the FBI that these hack and leak operations were coming, and this looks like a hack and leak operation. So let's just censor it. At the same time, or around the same time, I should say, we find out that Twitter's been making nice money from the FBI. Look at this. Jim Baker here reports, actually this is an email to Jim Baker. This was actually an email in 2021 about 2019. Hey Jim, FYI, regarding the reimbursements of the FBI and Twitter, looks like we've collected $3.4 million since October 2019. This money is being used by limited partners for things like other related projects, training tools, whatever. So otherwise, these are reimbursements for time spent processing requests from the FBI. So Twitter is billing the FBI for basically doing the FBI's dirty work by deleting posts and hanging out with the FBI in their hypothetical hack and leak operations. This is pretty sus, I have to say. This is pretty sus. I'm not a tinfoil hat kind of guy, but the internet doesn't forget. The internet does not forget that the New York Times pretended the Hunter Biden story didn't exist, and then 18 months later, in March of 2022, all of a sudden decides to link to the Hunter Biden story, and the internet freaks out going, aha, we knew you knew about the Hunter Biden story. The internet doesn't forget. It's really, really interesting, all of this that's going on, and the timing of this. I can't help it, but it certainly seems like the Biden administration here was in cahoots with the FBI to protect Hunter Biden so that people within Twitter and the FBI would poison the well at Twitter and other social media platforms, preparing them to censor the information that they knew was coming all along. They just didn't want that story coming out before the election, and then Twitter and Facebook did essentially just that. Of course, all of these revelations led to Donald Trump reiterating why the 2020 election was a fraud in his opinion, and that the Constitution should be overthrown. Now, Donald Trump's strength in his arguments have come into question. Some individuals are saying it's time for a DeSantis instead of a Trump, but that's totally a topic for a different video. The point here is, wow, these revelations, kind of shocking. If you want some financial revelations that are shocking, check out the programs on Building Your Wealth.